Right now, loneliness is killing 100 people every single hour. That is more than 871,000 people a year. Gone. Not from disease, not from war, but from being alone. And the worst part, the World Health Organization says 1 in 6 people on Earth is experiencing this right now. You might be one of them, and you would never think to call it a health emergency. But the U.S. Surgeon General did. He called loneliness as deadly as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Not a metaphor, not an exaggeration, a medical equivalence. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly how being alone rewires your biology, why it is now more dangerous than obesity, and why the biggest public health crisis of our generation has nothing to do with the virus, and everything to do with the fact that we stopped talking to each other. Here is what most people believe about health risks. You have your obvious killers: smoking, obesity, heavy drinking, not exercising. Those are the ones on the posters in your doctor's office. Those are the ones you hear about every January when everyone makes resolutions. And then there is loneliness. Most people think of loneliness as a feeling, something soft, something temporary. You are a little sad on a Friday night. You scroll your phone. You move on. We treat loneliness like an emotion, the same category as boredom or nostalgia, something you feel, not something that kills you. If you told someone you were lonely, they might say, get a hobby or download an app. Nobody would say you need to see a doctor immediately. And that is exactly the problem. Because while we have been treating loneliness as a mood, researchers have been quietly documenting something terrifying. In 2015, researcher Julianne Holt-Lunstad at Brigham Young University published a meta-analysis that changed everything. She analyzed data from over 3.4 million participants across dozens of studies. And she found that loneliness increases your risk of dying early by 26%. Social isolation, meaning having few social contacts regardless of how you feel, was even worse. Let that land for a second. 26% increased mortality risk. That is not comparable to skipping the gym a few times. That is comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes every single day. And it is worse than obesity, worse than physical inactivity, worse than air pollution. The Surgeon General confirmed this in an 81-page advisory report, stating that the mortality impact of being socially disconnected is similar to that caused by smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day, and even greater than that associated with obesity and physical inactivity. Loneliness is not a feeling. It is a risk factor, and it has been hiding in plain sight. When you are chronically lonely, your body floods itself with cortisol, the stress hormone, except it never stops. Your body thinks it is under constant threat. That sustained cortisol does measurable damage. The WHO Commission confirmed that social isolation raises the risk of stroke by 32% and the risk of heart disease by 29%. Those are not small numbers. Those are the kind of numbers that get drugs pulled from the market. And the damage accumulates. Loneliness does not just harm you in the moment. Every year you spend disconnected adds to the total biological cost, the same way every cigarette adds to your lung cancer risk. Your immune system weakens. Inflammation increases throughout your body. Your cardiovascular system takes a beating over time. The lonelier you become, the more your body prepares for threat, and the more damage that preparation does to every major organ. Meanwhile, loneliness is costing workplaces $154 billion a year in absenteeism alone. A peer-reviewed study found that lonely employees miss more than 5 additional workdays per year compared to those who are not lonely and are nearly twice as likely to quit within the next 12 months. This is not a soft problem. This is an economic and medical catastrophe. So now you know loneliness kills. You know the numbers. You know it is worse than obesity and on par with smoking. But here is the question nobody is asking, and this is the part that should genuinely disturb you. If loneliness is this dangerous, why is it getting worse? Why, in the most connected era in human history, are more people lonely than ever before? In 2018, Cigna surveyed Americans and found that 54% reported feeling lonely. 1 year later, in 2019, that number jumped to 61% in a single year. And it was not older adults driving the numbers. 79% of Generation Z reported feeling lonely, 71% of millennials. The youngest, most digitally connected generation in history is the loneliest generation ever measured. Then the pandemic hit, and isolation became policy. We told people to stay home, stay apart, stay safe, and they did. But the loneliness that was already epidemic became something worse. It became normalized. People started working from home permanently. Volunteering declined. Religious attendance dropped. Community engagement cratered. And social media, which was supposed to connect us, research suggests it may have replaced real connection with something that looks like connection but does not deliver the same biological benefits. Here is what makes this a true crisis. Loneliness is self-reinforcing. When you are lonely, your brain shifts into a threat detection mode. You become more likely to perceive social interactions as negative. You withdraw further. You avoid healthcare appointments, eat more energy-dense comfort foods, move less, and disengage from your community. Each of those behaviors makes the isolation worse, and each one independently raises your mortality risk. Loneliness does not just correlate with bad health outcomes, it causes a cascade of behaviors that produce them. We have spent decades building a healthcare system around individual bodies, individual organs, individual risk factors you can measure with a blood test. But humans did not evolve as individuals. We evolved as members of groups. Our biology expects connection the same way it expects oxygen. Loneliness is not a personal failure. It is a species-wide design flaw being exploited by the way we have built modern life. And the good news, the genuinely good news, is that unlike a genetic disease, unlike an irreversible condition, social connection is modifiable. Every study that shows loneliness kills also shows that connection protects. The same meta-analyses that found a 26% increased risk of death from isolation found that strong social ties lower the risk of premature death. The prescription exists. It is not a pill. It is a phone call, a meal with someone, a conversation that lasts longer than a text. The most dangerous thing about loneliness is that it convinces you no one would notice if you disappeared. 871,000 people a year prove that wrong, because someone always does. Too late?